When You Wish Upon a Star, Chapter 19. "Ilaria!" cried Mrs. Belmaggio. "Mail for you!" Ilaria flew down the stairs. This was it, the letter she'd been waiting weeks for. She reached for the letter with shaking fingers and nearly tore the envelope in half instead of opening it. The paper was thick and creamy and smelled like hope. She held it to her chest, then shook her head. "You read it for me, Mama. I don't dare." "My hands stink of yeast. You sure you want all that over your mail?" "Yes, if it's bad news, I'll burn it." Mrs. Belmaggio chuckled at her daughter. "Let's read it together." Holding her breath, Ilaria unfolded the letter. Her head had started spinning, and she had to fix her eyes to the paper to read properly. "Dear Miss Belmaggio, it is our profound pleasure to inform you that—" Ilaria didn't need to go on. She let out a screech that frightened off the jays perched outside the kitchen and immediately raced to the top of the stairs to shout the news. "I've advanced!" she cried. She clambered up to the third floor, taking 2 steps at a time to the attic. Kia, you'll never guess. I've advanced to the audition in Vallon. I'm going to sing for Maria Lynn—" As she burst through the door, she stopped mid-sentence. In her excitement, she had forgotten. Her sister wasn't there anymore. All at once, Ilaria deflated. She kicked at the door. "Stupid me," she muttered. 3 months. It'd been 3 months that Kiara's room in the attic had been empty. Still, the sun shone brightest in her room, and everything was left the way it had been before. The neat stacks of books, the ribbons hanging on the hook across her mirror, the picture Ilaria had drawn of the 2 sisters when they were little girls. Swallowing the lump that had formed in her throat, Ilaria held the letter to her chest and closed the door. Illy didn't want to share the news with her friend, but Simona's father was the postmaster of Pariva, which meant she knew everyone's business. "Heard you got a letter today," said Simona. Her so-called friend was waiting beside Mrs. Tappa's hat shop for Illy to open up. Beatrice was there too, and the 2 followed Illy into the shop like unwanted shadows. "Are you going to tell us what it is?" Illy ignored her friends. The only reason she even consorted with Simona and Beatrice anymore was because now that Kia was gone, Illy had no other choices in female companionship her age. Still, all Simona and Beatrice liked to do was gossip and speak ill of others, even of each other when one wasn't around. But bad company was better than no company, wasn't it? Illy ignored the pang of loneliness and sharpened in her chest. Niccolo had started seeing Sophia Ferrio, the miller's daughter, which meant he was head over heels and even less fun than usual to talk to, and Mama and Papa were busy with the bakery. Beatrice and Simona were weak replacements for her brothers and her parents, but it was better than talking to the wooden mannequins that stood in front of the window shop. Or so Illy told herself. "It was the letter from the Madrigal Conservatory," boasted Illy. "I'm going to Vallon." "Really?" Beatrice's eyes widened. "When?" "Tuesday. It's going to be wonderful. I haven't gone to the city in years." "Think of all of the boys you can flirt with," said Beatrice enviously. "Maybe I should go with you." "Niccolo's taking me," Ilaria lied quickly. "Sophia, too. They're inseparable these days." Beatrice's expression soured. Illy knew that was exactly what she hadn't want to hear. "You'll need something new to wear," Simona said, clearly envious. "Your old dresses will be out of fashion in Vallon, but something in vogue will be expensive. Maybe Kiara can send you a new one." Not even Simona's backhanded insult could ruin her mood. "I already have a new dress," Illy said giddily. "Mama went with me to get it made in Nero last week." Thanks to the money Kiara had given her, Illy had toured Nero's garment district and treated herself to the loveliest red gown. "Even if I don't make the Vallon round," she told herself, "it'll be something beautiful to have and look at." But as it turned out, she was going to Vallon. Illy's smile widened. "It's got lace on the sleeves and rosettes along the neckline. Wait until you see it." She reached for a hat on display. "Mrs. Tappa's even letting me borrow a hat for the occasion, the red velvet one that's worth a small fortune." Beatrice made a humming sound, which Illy knew meant she was searching for something else to poke at. Her so-called friends were like hens. Illy only wished she could throw them some feed to make them go away, or lock them up in a pen like real chickens. "I'm glad for you, Illy, about Vallon. But I thought the letter would be from Kia." Simona clicked her tongue. "It's been 3 months, hasn't it? Papa said there hasn't been any word from her. Leave it to Simona to find one way to storm in on her good mood. Illy raised her chin high. Why would a fairy write letters when she has magic? She can send messages over beams of starlight or have butterflies bring gifts from the wishing star. Has she? Said Beatrice. Or has she forgotten about you? Watch yourself, Beatrice. My sister would never forget about me. I'm only asking you because of what my papa said. What did your papa say? That she won't be the same. Beatrice cast Illy a pitying smile. Don't you know? There's a girl from Benita who became a fairy at, 20 years ago? Hardly anyone even remembers her. Beatrice leaned over conspiratorially. They say the fairies cast a spell over the family, over the whole town. They either make you think she's dead, or they make you forget her completely. A chill bristled down the back of Ilaria's neck, but she ignored it and pretended to huff with disdain. I've never heard this before. Where did you papa hear this rubbish? He was a librarian in Benita for 12 years, Beatrice replied. He heard things. The books talk, Ilaria snorted. A glare from Beatrice. I think it makes sense. Why else don't we remember anything about the fairies? All we know is that they were once human. Don't you think someone would have tried to ask by now? Illy said nothing. She had no good answer for that. During her short meeting with Agata, the fairy had been unresponsive to nearly all her questions. Kia, too, had been secretive. Simona flipped her hair over her shoulder. I guess we'll all find out when Kia's back. She is coming back, isn't she? For my birthday, said Ilaria, hoping the extra air she pumped into her voice would hide her uncertainty. Her birthday was in a month, and she knew that Kiara wasn't supposed to write, but still, every day she didn't hear from her sister, she worried that Kiara had lost track of time and had forgotten. Stop worrying, Ilaria told herself, tying the ribbon on her hat a little too tightly. Next, you'll be believing those stupid tall tales Beatrice makes up because she's jealous that we have a fairy in the family. She's always been jealous of Kia and me because she and her sister don't get along. Taking a deep, calming breath, she set aside the hat and drummed her fingers on the table. Why don't you two watch the shop for a while? Us? Beatrice exclaimed. It's not our job to... I'm going to ask Mama for some cake, Ilaria lied. I'll bring you each a slice. Simona smacked her lips. The blood orange one with chocolate? Ilaria sweetened her tone. Of course. I don't want anything, said Beatrice, crossing her arms. Ever since Niccolo had turned his affections to Sofia Ferrero, she refused to even talk about him, let alone patronize the bakery where he worked. Don't take too long, called Simona after her. What will we do if there's a customer? Illy pretended not to hear and flitted out the door. She needed air, needed to get away from the same old faces, the same old clock tower with its spindly arms, and same old crooked welcome sign in front of the flower shop, and the same old smells of lemon and cheese and grass and pine. She hadn't had a good practice session in days, and she needed to get in shape before her audition. She certainly couldn't practice in the shop with Beatrice and Simona there. They talked over her singing and made unwanted commentary, and when she took her music outside, former beaux came by to flirt, and other townspeople constantly interrupted her songs with greetings and questions about Kiara. Well-intentioned, but irksome, all the same. I'll make for the pastures, she thought. She'd climb one of the low hills to the top, the way she used to with Kiara, then sing and sing. Rare was the errant eavesdropper, and the birds would make a finer audience than anyone in Pariva. Anyone, that was, except Geppetto. As soon as she thought about him, her gaze found the young luthier as she'd conjured him, wandering the middle of the town square. He pushed his wind-tossed black hair, in dire need of a trim, out of his eyes. Her stomach fluttered as he ambled through the square, carrying 2 long loaves of bread under each arm and nearly bumping into him, Mr. Vacky in the middle of the road. Illy smothered a laugh at the sight. How strange. She never thought shy Geppetto handsome before. He certainly didn't have the strapping build of a young man she was used to flirting with, or the chiseled jaw and dark, mysterious eyes that infatuated most girls her age. But there was something sweet about him. Something sincere, too. Sweet and sincere? She laughed at herself. You must be lonely, Illy. Still, unlike Simona and Beatrice, at least he didn't try to provoke her with every other sentence. Everything about him was straightforward and honest. She could even tell from the way he fidgeted with his hat and how his feet pointed towards Mrs. Tappa's door that the hat shop was where he was heading. So Ilaria intercepted him with a tap from behind. "It's a fine afternoon to shop for hats, isn't it, Geppetto?" To say he was startled was an understatement. He jumped and practically tripped over one of the uneven cobblestones under his shoe. I was going to see you, actually." "Me?" Ilaria pretended to be surprised. Geppetto spoke in a flustered rush. I heard that you advanced to the final round of the auditions at the Madrigal Conservatory, and I wanted to... "Who told you that?" Ilaria asked, genuinely surprised. Your mother?" "You don't know?" Ilaria liked how pink his ears turned. It was adorable. "Yes, I do. It was your mother, Mrs. Belmaggio. She said that I ought to... To congratulate me?" A deep breath. "Yes." "That's very sweet," said Ilaria, meaning it. "Thank you, Geppetto." Maybe she really did have a magic power. There Geppetto went again, his face turning redder than a tomato. Ilaria had to smother a giggle. She couldn't help being amused, and even charmed. "I'm on break from work," she said. "Walk with me." "Oh, no, I couldn't. I have to get back to—" "A short walk," interrupted Ilaria. "Come on, Geppetto. It'll be too cold for strolls soon." Geppetto relented, and Ilaria couldn't walk fast enough. Only when the bell tower ringing 11 o'clock was but a faint chime in the distance did she slow down. She glanced at Geppetto, still at her side, but falling a step or two behind. He was trying hard not to sound out of breath as he wiped his face with a handkerchief. She forged up a low hill where dozens of pine trees grew. "Hurry, we're almost there." "Where?" Geppetto called. "Here," said Ilaria, fanning out her skirt before she plopped over the side of a small old pine tree at the top of the hill. "My favorite spot in Pariva." That was a lie. She didn't have a favorite spot. But at least here she could see more of the world than anywhere else in this sleepy little town. She could make out the corners of Elf touching Mount Cecilia, and when she stretched her gaze far, she imagined the iron spires of Valin beyond the clouds. Geppetto tumbled down beside her and wiped at his forehead again. He folded his handkerchief before returning it to his pocket. "Some would say the journey is the best part," he said belatedly. "Not me," replied Ilaria. "I want to get to where I'm going as fast as I can." "Like Valin?" said Geppetto pensively. He leaned against the tree and touched the clouds. "What will you sing for your audition?" "They asked for one song," said Illy, sinking into the grass. She didn't care if she stained her dress. It was old, as Simona had pointed out, and the pink stripes had faded until they looked practically white. "You have one guess." Geppetto considered. "The Nightingale aria?" "It does seem to be a crowd pleaser, and it's my favorite." "Mine too. Are you nervous?" Ilaria hesitated. "Yes," she confessed. "It'll be the most important day of my life. 5 minutes that can change everything." "I thought you didn't believe in fate." Was he teasing her? Ilaria couldn't tell behind the twinkle in his eye. She hugged her knees to her chest. "I believe we make our own choices, and we shape whatever future may come." "But sometimes out of the blue, something might happen." "Like what? Chiara becoming a fairy?" Ilaria scoffed. She could have said no. "She could have," Geppetto agreed. "But I think it was always her secret longing to help people. It brings her joy, unlike anything else." How could Geppetto, who had only known Chiara for a few months, see more clearly into her heart than Ilaria? Ilaria bit down on her lip. "That's what she told me before she left." "Don't you have a secret longing?" Ilaria thought of the wish she'd made on the wishing star. She thought of her music and how wonderful it would feel to hear her voice across the walls of Asperia's grand opera houses, to become a prima donna and sing with an orchestra, to see stars shine in the eyes of everyone she met, and have fresh roses and flowers tossed at her feet whenever she walked, to have grown men and women swoon whenever she blew them kisses. "Of course I do," she said. "Music," said Geppetto, reading the lift in her expression. I can hear it in your voice when you sing. You love music. It makes me feel alive, she said, repeating what she'd told Kia. When I sing, I'm no longer Ilaria Belmaggio. I'm a princess, or a revolutionary. I'm a milkmaid who had just had her heart broken, or a fairy who's lost her wand, or a nightingale who's been found by a lost boy. Figaro, Ilaria said, naming the character. Together they help each other find their way home. I've always liked that story. Me too. It's one of the happier operas. I always cry when they're sad. I didn't take you for a weeper, Ilaria teased. Or a dreamer. I listen, too, to much opera, I guess. Blame my father. He doesn't seem like the sentimental sort, but he is. There weren't many other boys in Pariva who loved opera. Plenty listened. It was hard not to, given that the melodies spread across Hesperia, carried on the wings of good gossip. It was just that most of the other boys spent their evenings at the Red Lobster Inn or playing cards. Even Niccolo had been playing his violin less these days. She kicked at the dirt in the grass. Before Geppetto could respond, she said, What is your secret longing? Geppetto took a deep breath. In his quietest voice he professed, I want to make toys. That surprised Ilaria. Toys? The light in his eyes sparkled. Toys for every child in Pariva. Toys that delight the heart and tickle the fancy. Toys they can pass to their children and their children's children. But what about your father's shop? I thought you loved music too. I do, but repairing guitars and violins, that's my father's passion, not mine. They bring their own kind of special joy to the children. Geppetto stared at his hands. Papa won't be pleased when he finds out. He doesn't know? Geppetto hung his head. I haven't been brave enough to tell him, but I will soon. Ilaria could sense Chiara's handiwork in this. She didn't know how she knew, but she did. It irked her, just the teeniest bit. I want to make my own music, my own way, Geppetto went on. Clocks and singing boxes and dolls and puppets. And you want a child of your own, I'm guessing? It was impressive how instantly Geppetto's face turned red. Who doesn't love children? He stammered. They are the future. They have their whole world in front of them, and they're free to dream. Ilaria couldn't agree. To be stuck in Pariva for the rest of her life, living a street away from her parents, bouncing children on her knees, such thought did not bring her joy. Geppetto was eager to change the topic. He cleared his throat and said, Have you hired a carriage to Valin? She nodded. Niccolo helped me. Mr. Moscato is bringing me in Monday morning. Is Niccolo coming with you? No, she shrugged. I don't mind. He doesn't like the city anyway. What about your parents? She tried to hide her disappointment, but Geppetto saw the flicker of discontent that crossed her face. They can't come, he realized. I asked, said Ilaria miserably. But it's an entire day's trip. Mama and Papa can't leave. Oh, it's not because they don't want to or they can't afford to, but the whole town depends on the bakery, and Niccolo won't come because it's Sophia's birthday, so you'll be going alone? Ilaria tipped her chin up, mustering enthusiasm. It'll be a great adventure. The audition is in the most important event of your life, said Geppetto. You shouldn't be alone. He bit on his cheek, then sucked in a breath. Would they allow me to accompany you? Ilaria's eyes widened. You would do that for me? It's a whole day's trip, Geppetto. I don't have much work right now, said Geppetto, raking his hand through his hair. He wasn't a good liar. Business has been slow. Would your father be angry? I know he relies on you to... He'll understand, Geppetto assured her. Would he? Ilaria wondered. Mr. Tommaso certainly wouldn't understand his son spending a day escorting Ilaria Belmaggio, of all girls, to Valin. She knew her reputation. I wouldn't miss being there for you, said Geppetto, his voice shaking, but his meaning was firm. I'll pick up some chocolates for Papa and work extra hard these next few days. It'll be all right. Ilaria was touched. A rush of warmth overcame her heart, and without thinking, she reached for Geppetto's hand and laced her fingers in his. Thank you, she said. She'd nearly forgotten she'd come to the hill to practice. Summoning the song inside her, she parted her lips to free the first note, a la. She'd never sung with an orchestra before, but in her mind she imagined violins sustaining the tender chord of the nightingale, and flutes fluttering an impression of wings and wind. Once their introduction was finished, she began her song in earnest. Geppetto listened. Not once did he yawn or pull out a book to read, but she knew from his expression that her song moved him. "One true listener is worth 100 idle ones," Kia used to say when Illy declared she wanted to sing before thousands in the Accordo Opera House. For once, Illy agreed, and as Geppetto listened to her practice for her audition for the rest of the day, she didn't think once about what an awful place Parriva was.